That's the lesson that you take from this. Don't ever, ever, ever give up on someone.
When it comes down to it, it's a very difficult sport.
I enjoy the people that are here.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to Community Closeup. I'm Joe Nelson. Today we take a look back at 2014 that marked a historic anniversary of a tornado that destroyed hundreds of homes. We look at how high school students found a new passion and started a tradition while contributing to a growing sport. And we update you on another high school student whose battle of a medical condition is bringing new awareness to a disorder that's unknown to many. But first, over the past 2 years, Heart Safe Coon Rapids has gone from a plan to educate how to respond in emergencies to a community effort that has since saved lives. CTN has followed the efforts of a group who delivers training and tools to respond during sudden cardiac arrests. Here's a look back to where it started and how it's grown.
In July 2012, my Uncle Todd had a sudden cardiac arrest up at his cabin up at the lake. He was actually in the water. But my aunt, knowing that the odds were against him, she fought for him and she did CPR on him anyways. He survived that day, simply because my aunt didn't quit.
Coon Rapids police officer Brian Plotz found a new mission to protect and serve the city after seeing how CPR saved a relative and meeting with an old friend.
I ran into a friend of mine, Paul Mendoza, out in the parking lot in December of 2012. He was installing the AEDs in our squad cars. He said that I should start a Heart Safe program. I saw the value and benefit of CPR for my uncle, and I decided right there and there in that short conversation in the parking lot that Coon Rapids would be a Heart Safe community.
Plot set a goal to train half of the city's population of 65,000 in compression-only CPR and to see half of its businesses equipped with an AED. The training sessions began in February of 2013.
We tell our kids one of our mottos is to be prepared, and I think it's a way for these scouts to start to, be prepared for all kinds of different situations, and we're really glad to step on board, and we're hoping more people kind of join the movement as well.
After 10 months of groups learning how to keep people staying alive, the city was finally recognized as a heart-safe community.
Well, we still got a long way to go, but this is a big part of that journey.
1K11, 1K12, information is operating.
McCarthy Auto World did not have an AED present at its shop in October of 2013, but luckily one staff member was prepared. 45-year-old technician Tim Hoffman was on his lunch break when he fell to the floor at the shop.
I complained about my chest hurting a little bit. I just figured I was getting a bruise or something. I took a little break. That's the last I remember, until I woke up in the ICU.
His co-worker Josh Gagner quickly noticed and began CPR until emergency responders, which included Plotz, arrived minutes later with an AED.
What we did what was expected of us. Josh, on the other hand, he did what 70% of Americans wouldn't do, and that's get involved and help.
Hoffman recovered and returned to work within a few months. Plotz called it a perfect example of how bystanders performing CPR can be the difference between life and death.
That situation plays out, 400,000 times a year in America. 400,000 people a year die from that, and again, it's through no fault of their own. But with just the smallest amount of training, you get a little bit of confidence, and with a little bit of confidence, that can spur an action. And that little bit of action that you do, those couple of minutes that you invest in that person, will make a lifetime worth of difference.
I feel I have a lot of people to thank, and in this situation, just saying thank you doesn't seem to be enough, especially with Josh. It's something.
Auto World then began training its employees in CPR and soon equipped its shop with a new AED. In the first year and a half, the program received high marks from the county, getting a public health award, and internationally winning the Emergency Cardiovascular Care Award at a conference in Las Vegas last June. But the biggest milestone was yet to come.
I started playing the music, and then midway or so, then my wife loves to dance, so.
For 65-year-old Tim Buck of Coon Rapids, hitting the dance floor was not a figure of speech. At a concert at the Coon Rapids Dam, drums kept beating, but Buck's heart did not.
I'm thinking, this guy's not going to make it if you don't get an AED.
Bystanders, including 2 who had been trained through the Heart Safe program, came to help, delivering compressions and calling 911.
Coon Rapids Dam, we're going to need, we have somebody down. He's blue, and not sure what's going on there. People helping him, but we'll need fire and rescue and expedite it.
A park ranger grabbed an AED from his truck and shocked Buck's heart back into beat. Buck had suffered a sudden cardiac arrest, and after being hospitalized that night, he needed a quadruple bypass surgery the next day. In the following months, the grandfather of 5 returned to a normal life thanks to the kindness of strangers.
I'm very, very thankful, and I thank God that they responded the way they did, and they were, got up there and stepped up to the plate, and they saved a life and, family and a lot of different things, and they'll be really rewarded for it, so I appreciate that.
He had literally no end organ damage, and this could only be attributed for a very effective CPR program that was provided.
I don't know if I've actually kind of wrapped my head around it yet. I always knew that one day, some way, somehow, that this training would come, into effect. I guess I never envisioned it coming into effect this perfect, where the way they described the SAVE to me was exactly the way I teach them to do it. And I guess it's just a testament to how simple our process is, and how easy CPR can be if you just have the right mindset.
In November, rescuers Mark Snell and Jennifer Fritz, who took the first training in 2013, were recognized by the city of Coon Rapids along with others who contributed to saving Buck's life. They also had the chance to meet Tim for the first time since he was rushed to the hospital.
It's an awesome group, and they were such a blessing to be there and quick responding, and I just appreciate each and every one of them, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart for what they did.
Buck admits bad health habits and a failure to acknowledge pains were problems he and everyone should learn from.
The general public, they should be checking a lot of their warning signs or anything coming up, be in touch, and also get involved with the CPR and understanding more about it and how effective it can be in saving a life and lives, and I think that's very, very important.
There's 5 grandkids that still have a grandpa. There's a wife that still has a husband. There's a child that still has a father. The ripple effect of what them bystanders did, the simple act of doing compression-only CPR, allows this entire family to stay whole. They've given another Christmas, another Thanksgiving. Every day from here on out is a day that typically 90% of the time, or 95% of the time, that this man wouldn't have had.
Act quick and learn CPR, and have defibrillators around and stuff, and know that this can really help save lives.
We're joined by Brian Plotz and Paul Mendoza, who started the Heart Safe Coon Rapids program. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
First, Paul, looking back at all the successes that this program has had and starting from just an idea that you had, how do you feel about everything you've been able to accomplish?
I'm really happy about it. I have to say that when I started this program, or helped start program, got the idea to Brian, I had no idea that it would grow to where it's at, and it's continuing to grow. I help organize Heart Safe communities across Minnesota, and none of them actually compared to what we've seen here, and not just by getting out and doing training, but seeing results and having several cardiac arrests that the fruits of our efforts, have actually helped out. And now we're taking it to the county level.
And Brian, seeing the successes that you've had just in the video, in the story we just saw, how do you feel about just how far you've come?
I feel great. I mean, we started this program just out of a simple conversation in a parking lot. And to think that a conversation in a parking lot could grow into this is beyond what I expected that it would be. I guess I didn't envision, a county of a population base of 360,000 people wanting to get on board with this. So I couldn't be more happy, and to be honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised by our success.
I know you set some goals at the beginning. Have those goals changed at all over time?
No, as far as Coon Rapids will continue, but we're taking Coon Rapids, and like Brian said, we're growing into the county, so our goals have expanded.
Yeah, it's we still want to train 30,000 people in town, and in Coon Rapids, once we hit that 30,000 person mark, we're still not done. Then we'll make it 45,000 or 50, or even eventually 65,000 people. That's where we want to take it. But the fact that we went from 30,000 people, with a population base of 65,000 to a population base of 360,000, I think that speaks to how easy our program is, and how effective it can be.
For people who haven't had a chance to get training themselves and they're in an emergency situation, they see someone who's not breathing, what should they do?
Well, first of all, they call 911, and a lot of times people don't quite understand what cardiac arrest looks like. So we always educate them to treat it as a cardiac arrest. So call 911 and put their hands on the center of their chest and keep on pumping at a rate of 100 compressions per minute until they can't do anymore. And of course, if there's an AED around, get the AED, bring it to the victim's side, turn it on, and follow the prompts.
A lot of times with cardiac arrest, people confuse that for a seizure. Symptoms of a cardiac arrest will mimic a seizure. That person will have what looks like a seizure at the onset. So you need to acknowledge that and recognize that. And if you're not sure if it's a seizure or a cardiac arrest, treat it like a cardiac arrest. Do that CPR because you're not going to hurt that person. Not doing the CPR is the one thing that's going to guarantee that that person dies.
If groups are interested in getting some training and want to schedule that, what can they do? How should they get a hold of you guys?
That's easy. You can go to the city's website, just Google search the City of Coon Rapids and you'll find a direct link to Heart Safe. If you want the email address, it's heartsafe@coonrapidsmn.gov.
And how does that process work? Do you have to have a certain amount of notice, or how are they able to schedule something like that? And how many people can do that?
Well, we can accommodate any number, and if they want to do it tomorrow and one of us is free, we'll do it tomorrow. And it's free. And we encourage all businesses within the city to take advantage of that.
And if there are some other communities, maybe outside of the area, that sort of hear about this program, what can they do? What are some options for them?
Well, I would look and see if they have a Heart Safe program in their community. If they don't, I would encourage them to start one. We're fortunate here in Anoka County that Paul and I live close enough to a lot of these cities that are seeking that designation where we can come in and assist. But if it's somebody, out in St. Paul or something like that, then maybe it's time that they get on it and start and get their local government and community leaders to get this program started in their community.
And once again, I just want to thank you for joining us, and thanks for all the work that you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we have more information on how you can get training on our website at ctnstudios.com. Coming up on Community Close-Up, a community caught by surprise suffered through one of the worst storms of the century in 1939. Now, 75 years later, we'll look at how far we've come to prepare for the worst.
My new mom and I have a lot in common.
The great outside.
We both love the outdoors.
So shiny.
That's not a flower. We both love geology.
Oh, look. An igneous one.
That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife.
A labradoodle.
That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Advancements in technology have kept communities safe by warning us when a big storm is on the way, but that wasn't always the case. In June, Community Close-Up's Drew Shingen took us back 75 years to the Father's Day tornado that changed Anoka County forever.
Whenever you do hear that tornado siren, the threat is real.
Well, the first time you hear something, you go, my God, what's happening?
I remember as a kid being very frightened of them. And I remember we turned on WCCO radio.
I'm meteorologist Matt Brickman in the WCCO TV Weather Center, where the weather watcher is green today with still a little rain left on the way. In fact, we've got a couple of thunderstorms we're watching as well.
I think we're kind of to a point where we're so used to hearing about tornadoes that we don't take into account just how destructive they can be.
WCCO's Matt Brickman has been covering Minnesota's unpredictable weather for years.
An F5 tornado is extremely rare. Most of the tornadoes that we see are EF0 or EF1, and those are still strong enough to do a ton of damage, but when you're talking about an EF5, you're talking about a once-in-a-lifetime event for a lot of places.
For Anoka County, that once-in-a-lifetime event was June 18th, 1939. Today, we rely on radar, satellites, and advanced weather networks. None of that existed when the storm hit 75 years ago.
In 1939, there was a National Weather Bureau. There were people that were keeping an eye on storms, but as far as communicating that to the public, really your best defense from a tornado was your eyeballs.
The person that helped lots of people get to safety and shelter was a guy by the name of Les Mason, who was a coach at the high school and for many years. And in 1939, he was also the guy that did swimming instructions and was the lifeguard at the beach on Rice Beach.
He came running up the street hollering, "Take cover, take cover, take cover." And he'd run all the way from the beach, because over at the beach, he could see what was in Hennepin County, all this stuff up in the air.
Tom Ward, now 90, lived through the deadly storm.
It was quite an experience for a 15-year-old kid.
The tornado first touched down in Champlin, and when it was making its way towards the Mississippi, most Anokans still thought they were safe.
The park here is at the point of where the Rum River behind me and the Mississippi River in that direction come together. Before the 1939 tornado, many people believed that a tornado would never cross the confluence of a river.
Not an old wives' tale, but an old belief that if there's two rivers, it's not going to hit, you were safe. And that's absolutely wrong, obviously, and it was proven that very day, you know. So
it was said that when it was crossing the river that it drew up all of the water from it into the twister, into the wind, and you could see the bed of the river.
After it crossed the river, it barreled through 2 residential neighborhoods and right down Main Street.
And when it was over with, my dad grabbed me and he says, "Come on," because we were going to run home, because that's where my mother and my 2 little sisters and little brother were. And he said, "Don't step on any wires." So we ran the 3 blocks to home, and we went right past the Army, which was now flattened.
His family was safe, but the damage was devastating.
When it hit the Army, it went up in the air and then came back down again up by the railroad tracks, where several people were killed.
The Armory was at the same location. This one was built years after the 1939 tornado, but it replaced the one that was lost. And it was a serendipitous sort of thing. You call it a miracle, call it whatever you want to. But in town that day was a convention for the American Legion. People from across the state were here in Anoka, and they were going to be having their meeting inside of the Armory. And they decided to have the meeting in the high school auditorium. And so they moved it there, and nobody knows why. But for some reason, they moved it there. And if they had held it there, this building was completely destroyed, and the death toll could have skyrocketed.
The twister was only on the ground for 5 minutes. But from this footage from days after it hit, it was enough to devastate Anoka.
In the city of Anoka, over 240 houses were damaged. Obviously, like immediately, there's just trees covering the streets.
Houses that were flattened, most of them with the roofs off, trees down. The biggest damage took place up by the railroad tracks, where after it hit the Army, it bounced down again. For years afterwards, you could drive through Anoka and know exactly where the tornado swept through. You could see the path right straight through the town because of all the trees were gone.
75 years later, trees have regrown and the city has rebuilt, but the impact remains.
What's significant about it as much as anything is, I mean, people always remember those sort of community devastation events. It's something that all of the community experienced, whether or not they had a family member injured or died or their house was devastated. They certainly were probably a part of the cleanup. They certainly experienced the aftermath of it, and they saw the devastation. And so that's why these things are so well remembered. Today, the Anoka High School team mascot is the Tornadoes, and that comes from this 1939 tornado. They didn't take the name immediately afterwards, but it wasn't very long after that they took the name, and it's stuck ever since. So I think that's probably another reason why people remember it so much. I mean, it's right there on the water tower, home of the Tornadoes.
I don't want to say we're safer now than we were then, but we have the opportunity to be much more prepared for storms now than they did even 20, 25 years ago, let alone 1939.
That's a very good system that we've got, because so many people all the time are watching television.
I have never lived through a tornado, but it's to my detriment that when I hear the tornadoes, that I'm a little bit sort of like annoyed at the inconvenience of it.
I think a lot of people have heard them now and you hear them being tested, you kind of don't think anything of it. But when you see the destruction that these tornadoes are capable of, it's something that you need to be fearful of and you need to take seriously because they can do a lot of damage very, very quickly.
For Community Close-Up, I'm Drew Shingen.
May marks the 50th anniversary of the worst tornado outbreaks in Twin Cities history when 6 tornadoes touched down in one day, 2 of which hit ANOKA County. Up next, how an old sport saw new life from young players here in ANOKA County. Stay with us. In April, we took you to Fogarty Ice Arena in Blaine to find out more about the growing sport of curling and to meet new players sliding to success.
Curling is really big in this area and it's only continuing to grow. Curling dates back to the 1500s in Scotland, where they used to throw stones or flat river rocks on ice. The game has changed tremendously from then till now. You can imagine curling in outdoor conditions where the weather is really cold, you don't even have a true stone. These days we use perfectly manufactured special granite stones that come from special quarries in Scotland. Trying to get the stone across a pond, you relied a lot on luck, and now we're able to make the ice such that you need a little bit less force to get the stone down to the other end of the sheet, and that's called making the ice keen.
In this case, I'd want to try to hit it here, because if it hits here hard enough, it's just going to automatically wind up right behind here as a guard.
We're seeing a huge boom in interest after the Olympics. Curling was one of the most watched sports in the 2010 Olympics, and so coverage was ramped up for 2014. And we found that some of our games were the most watched winter sport throughout the whole games.
Actually, I'd never really heard about curling before this year, but I heard on our student news, one of the teachers talking, he said, "Do you want to be an Olympian?" Everyone wants to be an Olympian. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll try curling.
Well, I've seen curling on the Olympics before in 2010 in Vancouver, but I didn't really think much of it. But this year, my engineering teacher, Mr. Gallagher, is telling us about it, and he gave us the opportunity to come here and try it out. And I mean, we tried it out, we loved it.
This high school group is new at curling, and you can see they've actually picked it up really quickly.
Okay, so you're calling the shots.
Yes.
Right?
So she's going to go through here and hit it on the side, but then what way does that translate to me telling her which way to go?
Conversation just got going to, hey, we should start a Blaine High School curling club. So then the kids went to the athletic director and proposed it to him with me as their supervising teacher, and we took it from there. It's always your job to watch every rock, not just your own teams. You're watching every rock. The more rocks you see, the better you know the ice. I wouldn't go after this right away, but later on in the end, say your hammer even, you can come in and use this as a backstop. Had them come out and just give it a try, and they immediately fell in love with it. And as you can see, they're here every week. Did you call for them to take out your own guard?
No.
Well,
that's what I saw.
I guess it's kind of fun to slide around on the ice. It's a completely different thing because I'm a swimmer and I don't do things like this before.
It looks so easy and everyone thinks it's such an easy sport, but I mean, when it comes down to it, it's a very difficult sport. I mean, they call it chess on ice for a reason.
It's just addicting. Once you get started, it's really hard to stop.
It may look easy, it may look hard to certain people, but I mean, just give it a try.
It's not like any pressure, it's really just throwing stones with some friends.
NBC Sports plans to feature curling at the Fogarty Ice Arena in Blaine on Friday nights from January through March. Still to come, we'll explain how a Coon Rapids student was honored by an NFL team. We'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I'm TV's Howie Shapiro.
When I'm not announcing CTN sports broadcasts with my sidekick Joe Yen, I'm watching all the other great programs on the CTN Studios YouTube page. There's news stories, great local events, and even full games. You can even watch on any smart device with a YouTube app. Whether that's your phone or a tablet, you can watch CTN's great programming wherever and whenever you want. You can even watch CTN's event coverage live. So no matter where you are, you can share in all the excitement. CTN Studios, building community through cable.
Pretty much a good day for me would be people leaving their hands off of me. I'm always called names. Everywhere that I go, there's always someone calling me names, calling me gay. I've been choked, thrown up against a wall, punched. Nobody's ever tried to help me.
In November, we told you about Easton Sorensen, whose football season was cut short after finding out that he had a brain disorder. But 3 months after playing his last game, the Coon Rapids High School senior returned to the field on a much bigger stage. Easton Sorensen played center for the Coon Rapids Cardinals, but after taking a hit in the first game of the season, discovered he had a brain disorder called Chiari malformation and could never play again. He had surgery and recovered and has returned to school. After hearing this story, the Minnesota Vikings invited him to a practice at Winter Park, and during a game last month at TCF Bank Stadium, they recognized him on the field as having the heart of a Viking. His family also got to see the Vikings beat the Jets in a thrilling overtime finish. Thanks for watching Community Close-Up. Last winter was a long and harsh season, but many still found ways to enjoy it. We'll leave you with a look back at last January when snow piling up wouldn't bring spirits down. I'm Joe Nelson. We'll see you next month.
Rippy!
It's not quite snowman snow right now, but it's perfect for sledding. I like to get the boys out, and they like to come out. And this winter has been great for sledding because we have the snow and the cold. And I like to get them out so that they don't think it has to be a certain warm temp to go outside.
Come on, buddy. Let's go. We're going.
I had to let the kids go sledding, get them some fresh air, a little bit of exercise. It's not too cold out, so we decided to bring them out here.
You have to steer us. It's up to you.
Having fun, playing with my friends, racing.
I like it. I like the hill. It's big and it has different steepnesses.
It's fun, and you can build snowman and angels and snowboarding.
We just wanted to go sledding, got my brother up and my sister-in-law up from San Diego, so we figured we'd show them what the cold's all about.
I'm messaging my family back in San Diego, and they're complaining about 50s, 60s kind of weather right now, saying it's so cold, and they have no idea.
You want to do it again?
Yeah.
My son Collins, he's 3. He's his first sledding experience. It's been pretty cold. This is pretty nice. So we're pretty bundled, so we're warm. Pretty fun. Once you get up here, it looks kind of scary going down, but it's fun. It's worth the walk up here. Ready, Colin? You live in Minnesota, you got to be out here.